in Dr. Abram.
Okay, sir.
Just to remind people that going back to the bigger group is something that the organizers do. It's not something that we did in the small group.
Okay, Abram.
With me, I missed being part of the Rainbow Nation. Remember, this church, one of its characteristics is that it's a multinational church. And by participating on a church service on a Sunday, you become part of the world. You become part of the multinational family. That's what I missed most. Yeah, besides the singing, but this is besides the singing.
Okay.
This is that distinguishing characteristics of our church. It's a multinational. It builds Ubuntu in our culture, so that we are am because you are. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Abram. Reinhard, is that your hand up again, or it was for last time? Thank you. Victor and Petra?
Yes, I just want to say, and I'm sure you experienced the same, we had so much hope in our discussion, and it is just a miracle to me how God has birthed new hope during this crisis and through this crisis, and it's just to me a sign of his love and of renewal for our church. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, we weren't even able to get through to everyone.
Yeah.
We had so much hope.
All right, thank you. Alec and Anna, Kumbi.
Okay.
Right. Maybe a bit controversial. Does anyone foresee a future for the church where vacancies at congregations might have the least effect, because people will be able to link up with the other congregations and that kind of thing?
Perhaps I can take that opportunity to continue with the next part of the input, because that already starts speaking to your question, Alec. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to again share my screen and carry on with the input. I just quickly need to scroll to the slide that this is where we were. Now I come to the point, where are we now? And
sorry, host, are you going to make me host?
I've made you co-host now. I will handle the groups just now, Mark, because the live stream is cut off if you are the host.
Okay.
So, I hope it works. Let's see. Okay. There are, based on our experience of the past 5 months, at the moment, there are some very pressing needs. And I think one of them is with the seniors, especially those that are still in lockdown in old age homes. And I asked the leadership of congregations that are present here tonight to really start thinking about how are we going to deal with those seniors that are still on their own. Then there's the pressing need of the unconnected, those that don't have internet connection. Some of you have already managed to reach out to them, but now that we are in lockdown stage 2, I think it's important to try to get those, and some of them are old people, some of them are people that just don't have the internet capacity, to try to get hold of them again. We discussed in our council that in our convention, the issue of support groups for those most affected by lockdown. Just to mention an example, there were quite a few that lost loved ones, that couldn't go to funerals, that had to do with all the normal rituals of mourning. It might be an idea to, in some way, bring these people together as a group, because there might be too many to visit individually, but to somehow connect them so that they can share about this experience of not being able to mourn properly. And then on the other side, the joy part. I think of the young people, couples that got married and had planned a wonderful wedding and ended up with 5 guests attending because nothing more was possible. So to bring those together and as a group to exchange and to say what is going through our minds. So in our pastors convention, we discussed and we mentioned a lot more of these possible groups. So I'm not going to mention them all. And then I spoke to the pastors, and I would want you as leadership to also hear this. I said to the pastors, it's important that you too take a break. Many people think that the pastors, because we were under lockdown, because they couldn't visit, they didn't even have to hold services on a Sunday, so the pastors are relaxed. But the reality is, and that's a global observation, that the workload on the pastors in many ways was double because of the preparing a virtual service takes much more energy and much more time than to prepare a service in the church. And so I said to the pastors, at the first possible opportunity, now that we can travel again for leisure, do take a break. Discuss with your councils and plan to take a break so that you can refresh your creative juices. Those who are connected to schools, children at school or spouses that are teaching are not able to take a break now. So when the first opportunity comes, and I want to ask you as councils to please support your pastors in that, so that so that they too can take a break. And I'm not saying it's only the pastors. I know that many people are in the same situation, and many can't afford to take a break. But if you can, do make a plan to do so. The next point that I want to mention, looking back in the last 4 days, we asked the question, what did we learn? And we said the importance of fellowship and relationships really became so strong. Okay, there are some people who enjoy not having to talk to others, but the majority of people really say we are missing this. We learned the importance of ecumenical relationships, that churches can work together, neighboring churches. That was especially in the city setting, where churches in a suburb started to reach out, work together, and especially then also coming to churches, caring in and for community. That a lot of initiatives were started, and I want to commend all the congregations that made an effort to reach out to care for those in need. And again, creative ways of caring. So it is wonderful to see what happened in this period. We realized that some things became less important. I already touched on that, and many on Tuesday night commented on the fact that dressing up for service perhaps isn't that important. I just want to not warn you, but just say be careful that when churches open up again, that you don't arrive at the church in your pajamas because you forgot that it's a real service again. So just on a lighter side. We realized that virtual meetings are possible. Congregational councils, and some of you are in areas where it's dangerous to travel at night. And so to discover that it might be a possibility in future to do a lot more virtual meetings, to avoid people to having travel for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour or 2 hours to a meeting, but that we meet virtually, and some meet in person and others join in virtually. So we learn to make use of new technology. And that is wonderful to observe that. Now, at the same time, in this 4 days, we said, but we need to make sure that we don't leave those behind that are not connected, because there are people that don't have this possibility, so that we make sure that we don't leave them behind. Keep that in mind all the time. The next slide, continuing what did we learn? We learned that technology can help us to build church, much more than we anticipated, much more than we thought. For instance, with regards to finances, some of you saw the e-bazaars that were happening, e-fundraising, more and more congregations making use of SnapScan, the possibility to instead of bringing cash to church, bringing cash to an event, to just use SnapScan. And this afternoon we discussed that there's a commission on SnapScan, 1 to 1.5%. But if you consider that cash handling fees at banks normally is at 5%, and actually SnapScan is quite a cheap option compared to cash. We learned that Bible studies via Zoom are possible. Some have started that, and now this afternoon when we discussed this with the pastors, we said this really opens opportunities in communities. I think of the rural areas, farming communities, where you can have a Bible study via Zoom, meet a group together via Zoom, and without leaving your home. Or elderly people, sickly people can join a Bible study group now via Zoom, a possibility that we haven't made use of before. Another thing, counseling via Zoom, that was for the pastors very difficult. But now after 5 months, I hear more and more pastors saying, actually, it sometimes is quite helpful. And many people respond and say, it's easier, not in every case, but in some cases, it's easier to talk to my pastor over technology via Zoom or via WhatsApp than to go to the office, go to his home, knock on the door and meet the pastor face to face, literally. So to discover the possibilities of counseling via Zoom, not as an emergency solution, but as an additional helpful solution. Many of you have shared your services with friends. That's also a wonderful new thing that we can do. We had a wonderful service, a good message. So I WhatsApp my friends and I say, look at this, sharing this. And the pastors, the congregations observed that quite a few times services had much more attendance than in the church, and attendance from all over the world. So it's a new thing that we realize that can happen. And so most congregations now are at the point where they say, when we start services again, we want to broadcast them. We want to live broadcast them. We are not going to stop this. So that is something that I also encourage you to discuss and ask the question, how can we make it possible that our live services, that once we are back in the church, that we can still stream that so that those who cannot attend can attend it, and that we can still share it afterwards and send it to others. They can join the service later. In this connection, we spoke amongst us pastors and said it's important that we make use of the expertise from our colleagues, that we learn from each other, with each other, within our church, but also beyond. So it's a wonderful learning curve. We are going to break for groups again now, and I'm going to post this input again on the WhatsApp group, and then you can ask in your small groups, just discuss briefly which of these, and it's especially these on this page here now, the last points, which of these can work for you or are already working for you? Where do you say this is really something that is helping us to move forward? So I'm going to, we're going to go into the groups, and this time I'm going to give you about 10 minutes for this discussion. I see there are quite a few people that are not in a group at the moment. I'm going to try to put some of you in a group, but then I would also just keep some of us here, then we can stay. Mark, I'm just thinking you are here, that we just treat this as one of the groups, and then the YouTube live streaming can continue, and the people watching over YouTube can basically be part of this group, although they cannot participate.
Ross, can I just quickly interrupt?
Yes.
A message. I've just got
You are very soft. I can't hear you.
I've just it's Till here. I just got a phone call. Someone's dying in the congregation, and I'm going to say goodbye and be back tomorrow. I'm sorry. Can you just excuse me, please?
Okay. Strength, Till. God's
Thank
blessing.
You. Bye.
Okay, so Mark, will you lead?
Yes, I will. That's fine. I'll lead this group. Yeah, that's the first time tonight that I'm in a group. Just now I was host and had to organize the group. So I see you, some of you, for the first time. Let's then go to the questions, and I'm gonna just quickly read them again, the points, and then I'm just gonna open the floor, and everybody can say which one of those is working already in their congregation, or which one do you think will work in the future. Finances, fundraiser snaps, Bible study via Zoom, counseling via Zoom, sharing our services with the friends, broadcasting service for those who cannot attend, making use of expertise from colleagues, and then, yeah, those are the points. Is there anybody who wants to start? I see we have a lot of pastors here. Okay, you can go. Start. Just unmute.
I was just putting up the number of pastors for.
Yeah. But it's fine. Let's give the congregation members a chance to speak. We have spoken a lot this week.
Yes.
Are there any congregation members who want to share with us which of those points are already working in your congregation, and which do you think would work in the future? If you want to speak, just unmute yourself and then you can share with us.
In our congregation, I believe the Bible study by Zoom has certainly worked, and I think it's something that can enhance the cell group, because it's one of the things that essentially, in a way, suffered over time in congregations. In the evenings, but a Bible study has been far more effective, engaging beyond the sermons and having deeper discussions by Zoom. That's been more effective for us. That's St. Peter's by the lake.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Somebody else?
Lisa, I was wondering whether you can share Johannesgemeinde. You made extensive use during the lockdown period of sharing daily devotions, daily thoughts. If you perhaps want to share a bit about that and the feedback that you got. Friedeboy, the question was, you also Johannesgemeinde, the question was, to what extent did you make in your congregation have good experiences with the new possibilities during this last 5 months? What were your experiences that you made in your congregation?
Actually, I do think Malisa should answer this, but until she's available, I will try to respond. What was done by our church council, congregational council, is that on a daily basis, an impulse was sent via WhatsApp to congregation members. And this represented certain groups. In some instances, for example, every Wednesday it was the seniors, and then individual Bible study groups made inputs. The congregational council introduced themselves, and in a certain way, and there were a lot of musical impulses, and for children's church, in fact, that has become very active. In that way, we became very much aware of the diversity in the congregation. Our congregation is relatively big, and sometimes an individual member isn't really even aware of everything that happens. I particularly appreciated it when the names of the people came along. So those daily impulses were really valuable, even though I personally must admit in the beginning I hardly watched them because I myself simply didn't have the time to do so.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Boy.
thank you. Mani and Gerda, how are things there? Are you using anything? All right. Anybody else who would like to share? Maybe some of the pastors can also share if you want to.
I'm headhunting now. I see Jill is there. Jill, I think the UALC made a lot use of new technology. Do you want to share? If you unmute yourself and then basically you need to click on the microphone at the bottom left of the screen to get sound. At the bottom left, there's a little microphone. If you click on that, it should unmute you. It seems not to be working.
Or maybe I can just quickly share. We used for the services. I took audio services and divided them into 3 WhatsApps. They're not too big because with WhatsApp you can only send a certain amount of megabytes. And I did the first WhatsApp was or the liturgy, the short liturgy before the sermon. Then the second WhatsApp was the sermon itself, and the third WhatsApp was the liturgy part after the sermon. And then when there was Holy Communion, I sent a 4th one, the liturgy after the sermon with the Holy Communion. And our seniors group has also decided to continue with WhatsApp. So I did some training with them, Bible study training, about at least WhatsApp training, doing it with Bible study. And we are still going strong with the WhatsApp. And they're enjoying it, having Bible study over WhatsApp.
Jill, I see that you did unmute yourself just now. Is it working now?
So I just want to let you know that I'm, for some reason, in 2 or 3 groups at the same time. So I am in one of the groups, and I'm, for some reason, in another group as well. But okay. Yeah, I am in another group.
Those of you who know Bernd know that he's too tall to fit into one group, I think.
Bernd, what would happen if you leave that one group, one of them, at the bottom right-hand side?
Oh yeah, I see you have unmuted yourself. Do you want to share? I don't have sound from Bowie. We've now been joined by Herta Wolf. Herta is from Herta and Siegfried are from NELCSA congregation. We are glad that you could join in. At the moment, we are in various groups. So at the moment, there are only 19 of us in this group, and some have problems in this group now to connect, but we hope to at least get some kind of discussion. We are discussing how the use of internet technology was experienced and was working in our congregations and what worked well. Mark, can you say in your congregation, in your environment, do you have an indication of the how wide the inputs are spread beyond Piet Retief congregation?
Well, maybe I can just share the devotions that I sent. That had started already pre-COVID, but I continued in COVID. And I've got 3 WhatsApp groups that I send it to, and around about 450 people. But I every now and again get phone calls and messages from even around the world, people thanking for the messages that I sent. And strange people phoning from Durban and from Cape Town and the whole South Africa, people that I've never heard or seen or know, that are receiving the message and enjoying them. So that's one way of how the technology is then used for the word to be spread.
It is amazing, and what amazes me is also basically because it's instantaneous. When we had the virtual brass band festival, I don't know how many of you managed to tune into that. Although it was sent out beforehand, we then had encouraged everybody to join at 9:30 so that we start watching together. And as the service ended, the WhatsApp started coming in. People, again, as you say, from across the globe responding. And so, although we were under lockdown, we had the feeling of being part of a huge congregation. And that to me is also an amazing aspect of this virtual reality.
Well, I then eventually also asked on the WhatsApp groups for my devotions that I sent if there's anybody who would be interested for the services that I do over WhatsApp. And then another group formed for people about 50 or 60 who then not on the congregation, who then received the services over WhatsApp.
That is amazing.
I've also done some counseling over Zoom. I also attended some courses. Actually, the
Mark,
weekend
is that text only, or is it video and sound?
Sound, only sound. No, I send it with sound, and then also send text that those who want to sing the hymns along can sing along. And so the whole service is text I sent out, and then with WhatsApp sound as well. Yeah, and I've attended some workshops on counseling and that, and it's interesting that that's then also over Zoom, which wouldn't have been possible if there wasn't Zoom, because I didn't have to fly to Cape Town or drive to Joburg. And it's amazing how people then tell these stories, how they have helped people counseling over Zoom in this difficult time.
Hallo Brenda und Holger, euch habe ich lang nicht gesehen.
Guten Morgen, guten Abend. Hello, Marge.
Hi, Stella.
Hello, Manfred.
So
I somewhere know that voice from somewhere.
Who
welcome
does?
back to all the groups. I will now straight away move on to the third part of the input. Can I just very briefly hear whether in general the groups were functioning or whether there were groups that had problems? So just to, if there are groups that had problems, if you can just indicate to me.
I can just say I was invited to 3 or 4 groups at the same time, and everyone asked me if I was in a group or not. And I finally found a group, but yeah, that was my experience.
Shame. Bernd, I had the same problem. I was in the group with the bishop, and then he decided we were too many pastors, so he load shedded me to another group.
We are supposed to share what we have, so yeah. Okay, I will continue, and then at the end we will then also give the opportunity for interaction in the big group. So let me go back to the presentation. What did we learn? Some of you are in congregations that are without a pastor. Some of you because you can't afford a pastor. Some are vacant. And today we discussed the option, to what extent is it possible to make use of what we've learned in this time to care for congregations that are without a pastor. And we started using the term e-pastor to get a pastor that cares virtually, and the combination of virtual and visits for a few congregations. Now, this is not a decision that we've taken. It is just a discussion that we took where we said this is a new possibility that opens up. If I just take the example, I've seen now various representatives from such small congregations without a pastor. In the past, we had pastors then traveling from one congregation to the other, and the pastor was only there where he physically was present, and the rest of the time he was not in the other congregations. The possibility makes it possible for a pastor to care for 3 or 4 small congregations and being present in a way all the time, physically in one congregation, and at the same time virtually in the others. If I now think of a Sunday service where a pastor could then hold a service in congregation A, and that service is live streamed to congregation B, and both congregations know the pastor in person. So it's not a strange pastor preaching, but someone they know, someone they can relate to. And the next week, that pastor then is in the other congregation, and the counseling isn't dependent on the pastor being physically there, but people can have virtual counseling because they know the pastor, the relationship is there. So this is something that we would like to hear the feedback also from the small congregations that are vacant, that are without a pastor, to hear whether that is an option that you can see. The next point that you see is the strengthening the leadership. I, in the beginning, spoke about Paul, the Apostle Paul. Basically, that's what his letters did. The congregations were without a pastor in the New Testament. They were lay-led congregations, young Christians, new Christians, and the letters of Paul were written to strengthen the leadership, to help them to lead the congregation. So Paul didn't write the letters so that they can survive till he comes back. He wrote those letters so that they can survive and grow without him being present at all. And so to make use of these possibilities to strengthen congregations so that they don't say we are vacant, we are just battling along, but that they realize we can grow. Another option that we found very interesting is this one at the bottom, at the middle here, especially for congregations with small groups of confirmants, the possibility to have combined confirmation classes where a pastor then has confirmation classes in 5 or 6 groups, combining them virtually into one. You could even then occasionally have a weekend together where you then physically meet, so that I remember some situations where I was in a situation where I had one confirmant, and that poor little child had to sit with me. And that's tough for such a young child. And so the virtual environment opens this possibility to bring these small groups into a community, into a fellowship. That leads me to the general training in NELCSA. We have been doing training, counseling, lay preachers, communion, many courses that we have been doing over the years. And we normally always did them, you had to be present, you participated. And in the last year or two, we started saying, let's do it online. And now with the lockdown, the co-worker training for the first sessions purely online have already happened. And we discussed in the Pastors Convention, and we said this opens new opportunities if we now start recording courses, make them available online. It can mean that, for instance, a lay preacher doesn't have to wait for 2 years for every few months a course to happen to attend, and then wait another 5 months or 6 months or 8 months for the next course. But you could then in a shorter period complete the training and be ready to serve as a lay preacher. It also opens up the door for those who can't get away for a weekend, for those who up to now had to travel 500 kilometers to attend a course. Now, virtual doesn't only mean you listen to a recording. It can mean, like we have tonight, that you join in a session. You are at home, like Waldo in Duivelskloof, 5-6 hours drive from here, but being part of this meeting, you interact, and in a smaller group, the interaction is much more possible. That's why we had also the breakaway groups, that you can experience the possibility of interacting with people, even if they are 1,000 kilometers away. The one group tonight had someone from Lichtenberg and someone from Bethany, the two most furthest part of our church. That's 1,100 kilometers. They sat together in the same room tonight to discuss. And so these are possibilities for our training that open up, and that we want to use, and we want to expand the NELCSA webpage to include this. But as I say, it's not only that you can download and watch a course, but that you can participate over long distance live participation without having the travel. I had the idea that we would now have small groups again and ask which can work for you. And I think in general, the small groups worked. We've got 20 minutes left till past. So I would now try and see how it works if we meet in the plenary, if we don't go into small groups again, and offer the opportunity. And I'm going to explain again. I'm stopping the sharing now. At the bottom of your screen, there's a row which says participants. If you click on that, it pops up and there's an option, raise hand, and a blue hand appears if you raise hand. Then there's also at the bottom a chat where you can click on, and then you type in a question or a comment, and everybody can read that comment. So the intention now is that we interact on what you've heard, and I would like to specifically start with a question to the small congregations that are without pastor at the moment. Waldo, on my screen, you're sitting right at the top. Based on what you heard tonight, how do you react to that? And others from small congregations, you can join in the discussion. You want to say something? Share something, Waldo?
Yes, yes, Horace. Thank you very much. I learned just by looking at this now. I've got quite nice ideas of what feeling a lot better about it, because I was like, yeah, how are we going to do it like this? And now, I mean, just this Zoom meeting alone, I can see how this can work very well. So yeah, I would like to use these ideas that I'm getting. I think it's very good. Also, what I really am happy about is what you just mentioned now about the meetings. Because I want to do the lay preacher course, and I really wanted to be finished with it already, but things got in the way. But now this can work very well if we can do the courses or the co-worker training courses online. That's the answer to everything. Cuts out the traveling. There won't be any problems with, I might not be able to make it because of this in the circumstance.
No
So yeah, I think
fines.
yes. So it's fantastic. I want to really go with that. I like it.
Thank you, Waldo.
Thank
Others with comments on that issue.
Barbara, hold on a second. Barbara, I see is that a hand?
Yes.
Barbara von Fintel.
No, it's not hand. It was just agreement.
Okay. Herta?
All right, the numbers if it's small congregations, I'm just thinking, what will the effect be if one says, let's have a Bible study on Zoom, or the interaction then? Will it be so lively as when you are in a group? One will just have to see over time what the effect would be. But there are possibilities that one can use various programs to do things like Bible studies at home.
Yes. Zifit and Herta are from NELCSA, so we welcome you. We are glad that you could join in, and we are happy to see you. Yes, one option, for instance, would be that such a pastor could then do training. Let me use an example. Let's say you've got your Bible study group. Ferdinand has got a Bible study group. And so once a month or once every 2 weeks, the e-pastor then meets by Zoom with the group leaders of the Bible study and prepares with them the Bible study that they then hold without the pastor in their congregation. So that's one option. So in other words, that's the Pauline approach, I want to call it, where the pastor equips the group leaders to lead the Bible study. The other option is for a Bible study to be called, where you would join from 5 or 6 congregation, it might be, and you join together in, like you, the two of you in your house. Let's take Waldo now. Waldo, his parents joining, and you have a group of 8 or 10 people, and it would be almost like the group discussion. I don't know, unfortunately you couldn't join the groups just now, so there didn't work, but for those who were in the groups, it worked quite well. So you would be really in a group discussing. And now comes the next step that I must say I'm dreaming of, is that once a year you then plan to meet for a weekend. So the virtual then becomes an actual meeting, and so people that haven't had contact at all get to know each other via this Zoom Bible study, and once a year they then meet, and from then on that Bible study takes on a new life because you've seen each other. excuse me saying this, but I think you understand what I mean. You've smelled each other. It's this being in the presence of someone. I see some people here that I know very well. So I can almost feel you because I know you. And so this is the possibilities that open up. So yeah, I don't know whether that answers your point. Does anyone else want? Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak to this?
We have Brenda and Holger Meyer.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to share, I shared in our small group, I was able to do Alpha online. So it was an amazing experience. I've done Alpha before, but I wanted to see what Alpha online was all about and how it would work. And I was in a group with people from the UK, from Singapore, and we met every week, and then also had the Alpha weekend, which was 2.5 hours on a Saturday. You know, and I think many people think the Holy Spirit weekend can't work if you're not physically together. But it was an unbelievable experience of sharing online, people being able to pray for each other. And it really does work. So I want to encourage you in your congregation to really try it. It's worth just taking that step and trying. And I think it would be lovely if we as NELCSA could do Alpha online and offer it as everyone can participate, and we can actually get to know other people from.
Seems as if you're having a breakdown in your communication. I just want to add and say the Holy Spirit is a specialist on working long distance and without the direct connection. So that's a very true remark. Jack, I see that Konrad Hartmann's hand is up.
Yes.
He's also from one of the congregations that are currently vacant from Germiston. Konrad, if you want to speak. You have to first unmute yourself. Konrad, you are still on mute. At the bottom left of, yes, now you're on.
You mentioned on your first point was on the possibility of an e-pastor, which would be a nice idea. But I would really like to see the services, the e-services that we've had in the past to continue as much as possible, regardless of whether you have a special e-pastor. We've been in our congregation, we've been helped a lot by the Northrand congregation and by the Midrand and the Wartburg United congregation. And one gets some feeling of connection between the whole of NELCSA, that we can see what's going on everywhere. And I think that's a very helpful thing anyway. I don't think we can expect all congregations to share the same way these congregations have done it in the past. And it was not only those, but we've been sharing a lot of what the other congregations in NELCSA have done. And I think I wouldn't want to miss that.
I just want to briefly comment on that. Yes, indeed. And now what we discussed also at our convention is the link between relationship and service. So in other words, the idea that we have is that it's ideal if your congregation also has a relationship to the other congregation, to the person preaching. So that's not just a virtual thing.
No.
that's
a
what
relationship.
makes it deeper. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Henning, you're next.
Yes, I've just unmuted myself. As you can see, it's a bit dark behind me. We've been load shed, not by the bishop, but by ESCOM. I don't know which is the higher power of the two, but anyway. Brenda, just a question to you. How many people actually were part of that group that you had, that international group?
There were 10 in the group. So you had the leader and then the co-leader,
Yeah.
and then 8 participants.
Thanks very much. That you answered the question and also what I sort of expected. I think these virtual groups must be relatively small. I think there's a big danger in then sort of saying, oh, we got this facility, let's have a group of 30, 40, 50 people, because then you do not build the relationship that was mentioning just now. To build a relationship, it's like a home cell group. You need a small group so that and then it can work very well.
Yeah.
But we not expect that we can have a massive group of people joining in training. We had lay preacher training last Saturday. I think it was very, very well presented, but because we were around about 25, 30 people, that some people were hesitant to ask questions. Sometimes when the group was asked to say something, it took a long time before the first person says something. And that is all part of this relationship. So one needs to apply the normal principles that you have in other groups as well, that you cannot make it too big.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Henning.
If I just add to that, at our pastors convention now, we were around about 30 participants. And the nice thing about the virtual thing is that breaking up into groups, as you saw just now, is fairly easily done. But the best thing about it when pastors are together is when you end a group, it ends. So that was wonderful to know that when the minutes are up, everybody is back in the plenary. You don't have to wait 10 minutes for the last group to arrive. But this is on a lighter note. But we experience this as a very a wonderful feature of the virtual get-together, that the group work becomes a very active feature. And you can very easily break for 3 minutes, where in a physical meeting, if you break, the people take 3 minutes to get to the place where they meet again. So that creates a lot of versatility.
Okay, is it Rainer and Ingela in NELCSA?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
We had earlier on in one of the group discussions, Remo mentioned something about virtual pastor, maybe giving a sermon, that we meet together as a congregation, but then, Remo, did you mean it to a pre-recorded, or are you thinking of a live sermon?
I think it can be both. It can be pre-recorded, but it can also be both. The technology is there.
What would be, in your opinion, would be the more effective one?
That's what I'd ask you. I don't want to answer it because you're the one that's listening to it. I think both can be effective if you ask me.
I would like to respond because I did virtual and live, and I think many pastors did. Actually, the challenge with the live is if there's a problem. In other words, if like now load shedding, and you do it live, and the one who does it live suddenly has load shedding, and you sit in NELCSA in the congregation and cut off. That's the disadvantage of the live. The advantage of the pre-recorded is that you can receive it, get everything ready, and you know everything is in place, so you can then see it. The good thing about the live is that the preacher knows the others are there, and they know the preacher is there. So it's you feel the liveliness. That's the positive part of the life. So both have their advantage and their disadvantage, as I say, with the life is if it doesn't work.
And your timing obviously is going to be a problem as well to get it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, Barbara.
Unmute yourself.
She has.
Yes, sorry. I'm just using Barbara's device. I just wanted to comment on the gentleman who talked about the small groups. I think small groups are always an advantage, but I do think that one also gets used to using the technology. And I think the smaller group, the breakaway rooms, really work well for personal interaction. And I think the more one uses these technologies, the easier it gets to be open on them.
Thank you, Almut. Okay.
No, I'm sorted.
Okay. Carl, is that a hand or a yes?
A hand.
Okay, thank you. It's your turn.
Yeah, I'm on a different on one of the other issues as well, on the confirmation of a combined confirmation classes, possibility of combined confirmation classes. In the time I had to think about it, I only could find some positive aspects to that option, because first of all, the youngsters, they know the technology anyway, so they won't have any problems like the seniors maybe have having with using Zoom or other software. And for the parents, which often was a problem, I think, and the pastors know better than I do, for the parents it was always a problem to take them there and to take them home again, and spending time or waiting in the car while they were being in the confirmation class. So personally, I think it would be a great idea to introduce the confirmation via Zoom and it can be for a couple of congregations at the same time. That is my feeling about the confirmation classes.
Thank you, Carl. And Carl is from Kempton Park. Jack, there are more hands. I don't know whether Jack has been cut off, but basically I see now the hands of Sia and
yes,
Bongo.
it's Sia and Bongo.
I just wanted to share that we, in our congregation, we have prayer group on Zoom, and it's working very well with us. And it feels like the whole group is in your house. I love being at the church, but with the prayer group, when we are praying together, you feel like the members that we are connected with are in your house, and it feels very good, and you can feel the Holy Spirit. It's very good.
So if I can ask, when did you start with that?
We started because of the
lockdown
pandemic. Yes.
And how was the first time you did it? How did that feel?
It was unusual. It was unusual. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking the question. It's something that I also experienced, that the first time to pray with someone online is strange. But now after 5 months, it has become such a normal thing. And again, if we think about it theologically now, speaking to God, God is not dependent on us being together physically. He is there.
Yes.
And somehow the prayer over Zoom opens a totally new dimension when one gets used to it and after the first time. So thanks for sharing that.
Okay, Rainer?
Just would like to hear from the youth that are here with us tonight. Any thoughts that they have, how to run the youth thing or things for the youth by using technology? Just some input from your side, please.
Okay.
I think it's a very good idea because sometimes we are not able to come like to the youth meetings due to transport. And I think it's a very good idea that we do it via Zoom.
Thank you very much. Gogo, Nemsadi?
You scare people. Yeah, I think from our side, when we started with the Prayer Women's League, the first meeting we had, it was just excitement because it was after a long time we've seen each other. We were smiling as if we were in the same room, raising hands, looking at people, whether their hair have grown and whatever. So on top of that, the Prayer Women's League meetings are every Thursday at 9, and they are going on very well. And people from other congregations or denominations are also invited to join. So it's a good meeting, I must say. We enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Musade. Musade is from Calvin. So we're glad that you could share with us.
Nicole, I will take 2 more hands, then I'll hand over to you, host, to wrap up.
Alrighty. I'm Nicole from St. Peter's, young adult. So I think it would be very vital to actually execute this in terms of Zoom, in terms of prayers for the young adults and the youth, and also with their confirmation classes, anything dealing with the young people right now, because I have seen myself that as a young person, emotionally with the pandemic, you lose yourself. So you feel like you're not worthy, or you can get shifted off very quickly and very easily off from your spiritual background. So like the small things like the prayer groups or Alpha or whatever course or whatever gathering we can have as young people. I mean, youngsters, we're so used to actually having friends, going to a friend. And now that we can't, I mean, you hear about these stories about all the people that are going through gender-based violence and all of that stuff. So you are, as a young person, you do feel a bit alone. But what in our smaller group, I can't remember the individual that mentioned this, but she mentioned the fact that we should be actually gathering all our old gadgets to actually help the people who are in need of in our congregation to actually make use of getting Wi-Fi or just like donating a router or for the time being so that they can actually connect. But it's things like that where I think we need more emotional support. So Zoom is a great platform. Like now I'm hearing people's voices is actually just hearing people. You actually feel enlightened and you actually can say that you can have a better weekend or next week because of this. But as a young person, I would actually ask for like things like counseling for us young people, because when we do go back to church, what happens to us? Do the young, because I know young people, we have this tendency of actually evolving. So you can either lose us or bring more people in, because now we can join youths. For example, one individual also said that their daughter is in a youth in Belito. So I was just like, because of Zoom. So it's things like that that is quite exciting to see that technology can actually draw more people into the Lutheran community. Thank you.
So I can just quickly add to that, Nicole, we heard today from our young reformer. It's a global Lutheran thing, the global young reformers. They are planning to host a virtual Bible study within NELCSA across all the congregations. So keep your eyes open. I hope that
that would be great.
Soon.
Thank you.
Bishop, we
Stefan?
can hardly hear you. There's an echo behind. You can't hear.
Okay, I'll speak louder next time.
All right, Stefan, it's your turn.
Stefan is from ELCR, if I'm from UELC, Wartburg, if I'm right. Stefan, you have to unmute yourself.
He's not muted. Okay, while Stefan is still trying. Okay, thank you, Stefan. You can go on.
We lost you. We lost you. We couldn't hear a word or two. We lost you. Bishop?
Is it, but Simon, I think you need to check your connection because you can hear properly on our side, but when you talk, you are the one who's breaking down. Just check your connection quickly. Is it Bernard?
No, it's fine now. I spoke and I muted myself.
Okay. Is it Bernard?
Bernd Klingberg, he's from Braunschweig congregation, also a synod delegate from there. So Bernd, over to you.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate the session, and technology has really made it possible for us to connect by means that we didn't know or possibly understand possible before. But I really feel that we mustn't lose sight of the fact that physical contact is still important. We've seen it in our congregation that there's such a hunger for physical church service and getting together. We discussed it in one of our smaller groups that it might be a personality thing as well, where some personalities really thrive now with this technology where introverts might feel that they now have the opportunity to stay at home and use technology to be part of the service, even though they don't have to be at church. But on the other side, there are other personalities that really need the energy from physical contact, physical seeing people. And I just feel sometimes we jump into, the whole conversation worldwide is to say that there's a new normal. Everything is changing. And I believe that we need to keep sight of the fact that even though technology has given us the opportunity to change the way we think, I strongly believe physical contact and the way we've done it in the past is also equally important, and not to lose sight of in the small groups we were discussing the value of a hug as an example, and just getting together and having a cup of tea. And even though technology allows us to do a lot of things virtually, I still feel there's a lot of value in doing physical meetings, physical contact, and physical services. Thank you.
Stefan, last chance. Okay, I will have to give you an option. Please type in, because we can't hear you. Please type on the comments your point. Then Mapule, you are the last one.
You are muted.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I'm saying I appreciate the fact that Zoom came in very handy to our congregation. We're able to worship and enjoy the services, although we miss physical contact. The most important question that I really want to put back to the bishop is, I still believe that we have to reach out to those that are unable to worship with us. It does sound a little bit selfish that we are able to worship and enjoy the comfort and still be able to see each other. But what are we doing as a church to help the needy? I strongly believe that this point should really be taken serious. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mark, is there anything that you want to draw attention to from the chats before I hand over back to host?
I haven't seen anything at the chats from my side that I think needs to be reported on.
All right. Host, then over to you.
Mapula, I can just say that during our pastors' convention, what you addressed now was a constant theme. What about those who cannot connect? What about those who do not have access to the technology for whatever reason? So in the part when we said moving forward, they are very much high on the priority list. We use the term those who fell through the cracks, those who were totally left, you could say, abandoned in the congregation because they couldn't connect. And so in some congregations, very good efforts were made where people then made it their point to contact those people specifically that could not connect. But I think there will still be many that have been overlooked. And so this is indeed a priority. And I also want to link it to, Bernd, what you said about the relationship and in our very first on Monday, when we spoke about the new possibilities that exist through technology, it became very clear that the relational aspect cannot be replaced. There are things that where you don't need a relation, where you also don't need a physical closeness. But there are many things, especially in church, and part of the church, the Bible study this morning, we spoke about the gifts of the Spirit and the body. The image that the New Testament uses for the church as the body of Christ. Not a body is something very physical. And I think most of us know how special this is to be part of this body. And I think this is part of the most traumatic aspects of the lockdown, when people were ill and in hospital and the body couldn't care, didn't care, but could not care, was prevented from going, pastors were prevented from placing the hand and pronouncing a blessing. So the physical side is something that you can't replace it. And so in our deliberations, we said we need to keep in mind some matters are very much content-based, and you can share that online, you can share it as recordings, but some matters are relationship-based. And so we need to come back to those parts as soon as we can and as good as we can, and find ways of doing it in this interim period. And I know some pastors have been doing window visits, where they stand on this side and the sick person's on the other side at a safe distance, so to get at least some kind of connection. But if I now want to sum up, because it is getting late now and you all still have a long way to drive home. I see we've got even people from the Cape that have joined us, and they still have to get home before 10 o'clock tonight. Siegfried and Rona, I see you. Basically, if we ask what is the way forward, to me the bottom line is, despite this crisis, that I over these 4 days discovered many reasons for hope. Hope to see the creativity that came alive. Hope to see how quickly pastors adapted to the new reality and got into it. I see much reason for caution, as I've already pointed out, the issue of burnout, of overexertion. And I shared this with the pastors very briefly, and I think I touched on it tonight, but the fact that When we switch off just now, you are back home. You don't have a in-between period to cool off, to reflect. It's just switching off, standing up, and you're back in your environment. And these are the things that really put a lot of strain on us. So a lot of new opportunities, but also the awareness that we need to be careful. I'm very grateful that we, for the first time since I've been in this church, could have a pastors' convention with 130 people attending an evening session. This is a new possibility that we didn't have before. So all of you shared in that information before it reaches the congregation on Sunday. So that's a wonderful opportunity. And my prayer is that as we move forward, we will not just slide back into old habits and forget about the things that we have discovered, but that we will take what we have learned and move forward from here. Jack, shall I close with a prayer?
Yes, what? You can close with a prayer.
I was still hoping that Elke is going to sing for us. She could have sung a beautiful closing prayer, but I think she's going to refuse. She's going to pretend that she can't get online.
No.
Horst, just a quick mention that we're actually about 170 people with doubles and with YouTube being on. So it's a whole lot more.
Yes, thank you. Elke, so you're prepared to sing?
Jack, I am here. I have been waiting to sing, but now it's too late.
I was wondering what the excuse would be. So I'm going to say a prayer and close with a blessing. And you can still chat in this bigger group for a while if you want to. And then I hope that you all have a very good night's sleep. And I really appreciate you making the effort to be part of this meeting. So let us pray. Lord, when we think of the Apostle Paul and the challenges that he faced and how he dealt with them by writing letters, and how we today exist as church also because of those efforts that were made, that we have the New Testament to learn from because of the letters that were written to deal with the issues, to help the church through the early crisis. And now we are part of this history, and yeah, new things are being written, new things are being established in our times that will help the church into the future. We thank you, Holy Spirit, that you are not hindered by things like the coronavirus and lockdown, but that you sometimes use these times to really move us into new directions. Open our hearts and minds. We pray for all those who are left behind, who have fallen through the crack, that they will be seen, that they will be helped. And we pray for those who have been touched in this time, who have been distant from church and who've been reached through this virtual reality, that they will become part of fellowships and of congregations. I pray for wisdom as we move forward when congregations and councils decide on restarting services. Grant them the wisdom to act responsibly, not in panic, but also not recklessly. I pray for all the pastors, my colleagues, that you will give them the strength that they need and give them time to relax and to take a break. And I pray for our church, for NELCSA, that you will lead us as we move forward, and that we will sometime in the future look back on this year 2020 and realize that you were at work in a most wonderful way. And now may the peace of God, the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, and the love of our Lord be with you now and forever. Peace be with you.
Peace be with you.
Peace be
Friends,
with you.
thank you very much for joining us this evening. Have yourself a blessed evening.
Thank you, Moruti.
So as I say, you don't have to run away. You can still say hello to someone and share a cookie.
Share a cookie. Thank you for giving us the opportunity.
I'm glad that you
Appreciate
could join
it.
in.
Thank you.
Bye, Elke. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mosadi.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye,
everyone. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all for organizing this evening, and have a blessed tomorrow in your final day of the convention.
Henning,
Bye.
Henning,
Yes,
are you still there?
yes, I'm in the dark, but
I just wanted to tell you, in this week, Horst definitely had the higher power. He
could
was
he
definitely
overrule
the
load
higher
shedding?
power.
Did Horst overrule ESCOM?
He is so blimmin' self-sufficient. He's got his solar lights, his solar batteries, his own Wi-Fi. Everything keeps on working. Everybody else get bombed out. Horst, he is the high.
He sits there with a smile. But Elke, it's time now for you to sing. Now we got lots of time.
Gosh. No,
Everybody's waiting.
I was going to sing and then he didn't let me. And
You won't drive home till you've had your singing. Nobody's going to give you a lift home either.
Fracke Manfred was mein Lieblingslied. Manfred, bist du noch da?
Bobbejaan klim die Berg.
Wolfgang Matilda, du. Nein, es war mein kleiner grüner Kaktus, steht oben auf dem Balkon. Holla hi, holla ho, holla ha.
Not quite what I expected, but good.
Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye and keep well and have a nice day tomorrow.
Thanks, nice to see you,
Yeah.
Henning.
Right, good
Good
night.
to see
Goodbye,
Herman, Stella. I see you, and both Stellas were there.
Ja, sie ist noch da.
Can I say something about that Bobbejaan klim die Berg? When Karen was only three years old, she was just becoming 4 years old. She went down to the Cape to my parents, and she was at a Christian meeting, and they asked, "Do you have a song to sing?" And she says, "Yes." And they said, "All right, you can sing." And she says, my God is so groot, so hastig en so lastig." So she mixed the two songs up. But I think the message came through. My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty.
Definitely. Penny, I'm glad to see you. Penny is from Pietermaritzburg, and she also was in hospital with COVID. How are you doing? You are still on mute. So although you don't wear a mask, you don't have to.
There we go. Yeah, it's a fickle virus. It really is. I'm 9 weeks down and I'm still not back at work. I was in isolation for 24 days, and without this whole communication and Petsy and just being able to ask for people to intercede with prayer, and that's when I just wasn't well enough to do it. I don't know how, you're talking about the isolation versus the technology, and I think that it's very important that we know that both of them work, and there are a lot of people who are isolated, whether it be distance or whatever, and then this sort of thing really it just does bring the community together. So it was an amazing experience for me, knowing that Sundays were my time, and there were just so many different services to listen to. I think that was so nice, is that you could share in so many different services. So but it's a very fickle virus, and it just one thing after another, but I'll get there. Thank you.
We wish you strength and blessing, and
Thank you. Thanks.
And we're really glad that you were with us tonight. So
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks. Yeah, yeah. Nice to be able to know I'm here. Yeah. I should have a T-shirt made saying I'm a COVID survivor. Yeah, yeah. So
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Linda. Travel
Linda.
Travel back safely to Pietermaritzburg.
Nice to see you.
Lovely to see you, Elks. Bye.
I'm also going to go. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Penny. Have a good night and yeah, keep on
Thank you.
recovering.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.
Now there's a K Muller. Now I need to know whether it's my son or my brother behind that name.
Your brother.
My brother, okay.
And your sister-in-law.
Hello, Klaus.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Hi, Elke.
Bye, Elke. Nice to see you.
Tomorrow I'll sing a proper song and we'll put it on YouTube.
Oh, yes. Jerusalem.
Yeah, that's the one. We are going to do that in Winterton. We're going to have the dance down the street soon, I hope.
YouTube.
I'll post it on Facebook. Bye.
Sleep well.
Bye. Schlaf schön. Thank you, everybody. Tschüss, Horst.
Gute Nacht, Stella. Mark, I know you are Johannes Gemeinde, and Andrew is from Wartburg, and Gideon, from which congregation are you? You have to unmute, otherwise I can't hear you. That's at the bottom left, there's a microphone. You just click on that.
Hello?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm from Potchefstroom.
Okay.
From Pastor Jan's congregation.
Yes. Well, welcome. I'm glad that you could join as well. So you're having a cold night.
Rather cold, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for we could participate. It was a wonderful experience.
I'm glad that
and if I may say, if we've got this against us out of the moon, but our own Christus Jesus coming.
Thank you. Mark, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. We've talked, the two of us. I've also mentioned some of this in the smaller groups, that the lockdown tends to have me circle around lots of my own issues and stresses and so on. And one thing I find extremely valuable is communication in whichever form. And I also mentioned this in one of the smaller groups, be it through the formal structures like the pastor or someone from council, or just friends or family or somebody communicating and just basically raising one from this pit that one tends to sink into. I found this meeting tonight very insightful and heartening to hear from people all over the country and to hear so many different ideas. So I appreciate having been part of it. Thank you.
I'm glad that you could join in. And you are there and not muted, but I haven't heard you at all. Now, I'm not sure whether it's just your device that's connected or whether you are behind the end. Might be a slow connection. And Andrew, you haven't said a word either. Andrew is from Wartburg. also muted, so it might be that nothing's coming. Well, I think I will then also say good night. Thanks for joining, and you are, as they say in Afrikaans, die bitter einders. And it was really a wonderful experience, something new for me too. And it is amazing what one can end. Oh, there he is. Now put your picture back on. That looked much neater.
It did, didn't it? Herr Bischof, thank you very much for this evening and this whole week. I think we gained a lot from it. And thank you for including us in the discussion.
Indeed,
Much appreciated.
Okay, then I wish you a good night.
Good night.